Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my special guest, Coach Desi. How's it going?
Hey, it feels better talking to people when you've got a win under your belt. So we definitely appreciate the win against Dallas. That's huge for me.
Oh yeah, it is. Like just coming away with a win over a team you've had the numbers with for the last quite a couple of years. I mean, we were playing injured, they were playing hurt too, but we won without some of our key players, so that's a huge plus.
Yeah, yeah. And I the first half of that game was super not awesome. Let's just say that it was not our best performance, but the fact that we were able to go back at halftime, make some corrections, probably had some butts lit up, at the halftime mark and come out with Brock looking essentially who we love to see. That's the version of Brock that we like to see on the field. So it was a great second half, and hopefully they can make the adjustments now that we're half season and head into the second half of the season with guns blazing. I'd love that.
Oh yeah, I think that's the sign we're hoping. Like in the first half, it was sloppy performance. You saw how this offense wasn't performing up to their potential until the second half. I seen a lot of strides going into the third quarter. It's like the gears were changing a bit. So I think I think Fred Warner had a pep talk with those guys, from my understanding.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Terradome, what's up, buddy?
Oh yeah, what's up?
And I think could it be that the hyena is bringing some energy in the backfield that I am really loving? We're missing our big linebacker in oh my gosh, why is his it's not Fred.
Dre Greenlaw.
Thank you, Dre. Big Dre. We're missing Big Dre energy. And so it's nice to see such a young guy in the backfield bring in the heat, matching well with Fred Warner. I love it. And Nick Bosa was fired up, man. So we had our captains, at the different levels definitely showing up for the game. So definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the guys that did their part well. Bosa's been consistent, of course, but since you want to bring up some players who caught your attention, who are under the radar that nobody had a clue about, like just from an outside or just from a player's perspective, like which player kind of surprised you this year? Like, oh, this guy's looking really good.
Malik Mustafa, I like what he's bringing. He is just coming hungry every game. He shows up. Even if he's getting totally drilled by Patrick Mahomes in the end zone, like I love what this kid is bringing to the Niners defense. He's sharp. He's just hungry is what the best word I can describe him is. He's just hungry and he's out there doing the thing. So definitely appreciate that.
He's been filling in pretty well for Hufanga, but I think this could be controversial. I think he might be our starter going forward. I don't think Huff is coming back next year, unfortunately.
Really? Oh, that breaks my heart. I'm a big Huff fan. But yeah, he has not been able to get things going this year. He's come in, got injured again, been out. And I think they're planning for him to come back after the bye with a cast on. So he's torn a ligament in his hand or his wrist area. And that's tough too. So to break, no, it's tough.
I mean, unless his value goes down, then maybe we get him back. But I just don't think he's coming back. I think he's going to try to get his way out of and go to a different team that's going to play him. So, yeah, Malik Mustafa has been a nice pick so far. I mean, the crazy fact was that draft pick from Malik Mustafa was from that Trey Lance trade. That's the crazy thing, right?
It's crazy. It's funny how the universe works that way, right? And I have to say, like, our entire rookie class is really showing up and showing out. They're really taking that next man up mentality to the next level, and I love seeing it. Renardo Green was someone that I had my eye on coming from Florida State. I live in Florida, so I'm definitely rooting for my Florida players in Renardo Green and Ricky Pearsall as a University of Georgia alum. So I definitely was looking at both of those players coming in, and to see them, get their opportunities and be out there is fantastic.
I mean, yeah, there's some rookies who catch our attention, of course. But I mean, when I look at a guy that I just saw I actually had him as one of my second round options. But the funny part was he was available to the third round. So Dominic Pooney was the guy that I was pounding the table for him. But I said if we can't get an offensive lineman in the first round, then I'm okay with getting somebody like Dominic Pooney or Cooper Beebe or those other guys. And Dominic Pooney has been very spectacular. Like, that's the kind of offensive lineman I like. A guy that does his job right, doesn't allow a single hit on the quarterback, doesn't allow a sack. I mean, that's all I can ask for an offensive lineman. I can't say so much about those other two individuals, which I'll just leave it out of the spotlight. You know, I can be a little critical on offensive lineman because I studied that game, but Pooney is he's just more ready. That's what I'm impressed about.
You know what? Shame on me. That's really the first name that should have came out of my mouth. But if anybody knows me, I'm a defensive side of the ball kind of girl. I love defense. So I'm always looking at the defense first and foremost. But Dominic Pooney is a fantastic pickup. I'm with you. Like, heading into the draft, I'm like, we have got to get an O-line person. Like, I'm terrified of when Trent Williams retires, or when he, hopefully he ends his career on retirement and not on anything else that's going down. But I was in your camp. I really wanted somebody to help on the offensive line, first round draft pick. But it is what it is. We got a great star in Dominic Pooney. He has been showing up. Now, with that said, do you have any concerns about, rookies tend to putter out? It's a longer season for rookies, and with as many as we have playing right now, are you have any concerns about going all 17 games and into the postseason?
No, I like to see more experience out of the young rookies, because at least they'll be ready when their name is called. I mean, you're seeing some of the guys that nobody had an idea about, like Ricky Pearsall's coming off just from almost light threatening, and he's actually kind of contributed than expected. Jacob Cowan, which I thought could have got more opportunities. He's just been returning kicks, but when given the opportunity, I like that he can make the big plays. I mean, I like to see a lot of the young guys get opportunities. Like, the one guy who's caught me under the radar that I had no idea who he was until I started watching more, because he was coming into our training camp going into the preseason. So this Sam Okawano, I was like, who the heck is this guy? And he's just coming out, making plays and pressuring. And I'm like, okay, I like this guy. He's just something out of the ordinary. You just don't know who you got, but I guess proper coaching matters when you get somebody off the streets like that.
Yes, I think when I think of him, I think of steadfast. I think he's been like this slow, like you said, a little under the radar, but he lights things up. And when you see him on screen, it's like, oh, okay, who is that guy? And you start taking mental notes on him. And he really has been, I would say, over the last 2 games for sure, I've been hearing his name a lot more often. So I agree. Good stuff.
Yeah, he's under the radar. And like, since we're talking about like other concerns, like, like injuries and the concerns for the team, I know you wanted to bring up this one. What's more concerning about the team's injuries and what's concerning for the team going forward?
Man, it has been a tough season. It's not, I mean, the last time I remember talking about injuries like this was 2020, right? It's been some, like you said earlier, Ricky Pearsall getting shot, right? I mean, wow. I mean, I still can't believe that kid was pretty unscathed, all things considered. I mean, he definitely should have had a much worse injury situation, if it was given any other way. So just the way that gun must have hit him, however it went through his chest, angels were watching over him for sure. And thank goodness for it. So like I said, good to see him back. I'm shocked that Deebo Samuel played last weekend. I'm shocked at how many reps he had. I don't know why I'm so shocked about that. But seriously, pneumonia is no joke. And my concern for him now is not only did he have pneumonia, play in the game, but now he has a rib injury.
Yeah, it is concerning.
Yeah, if you've watched me talk about this on either my podcast, Girlfriends in Football, or I talked about it on who else did I? Maybe Steph. I talked with on 49 Carats on Friday, talking about pneumonia. What pneumonia is? It's an infection in the lungs, but one thing that can either cause it or hinder it is lack of expansion of the lungs. So when we get sick or after we've had surgery and we just kind of lay around and don't do anything, the microscopic ends of our lungs look like grapes. And when you are not using, your full inspiration of breath, meaning you're laying on a couch and you're just like, taking these little baby breaths instead of going out to the car, which might make your lungs expand, or reach for something, or, walk the dog, or things like that, where it makes your lungs expand at different rates, those microscopic ends start to collapse, and then fluid builds up, and then infection sets in. So in the same breath of what Debo now has, a rib injury, I worry, is the infection completely cleared? Is he all okay? Or is this going to complicate his complete recovery from the pneumonia, now having a rib injury? So prayers out for him. And speaking of prayers, there's no one on our team that needs our prayers and love more than Mooney Ward. So Charvarius Ward, I'm sure you've seen the headlines. His sweet baby daughter died suddenly. And, you got to think about this impact on the team. We've got a lot of players with young kids, Debo being one of them. Fred Warner has a little one. I mean, this is all going to hit very close to home, and this is a tremendous loss. So, there's a lot going on. We still have Greenlaw, I wouldn't expect to come back until maybe November, December. Christian McCaffrey, I'm still not holding my breath on that. They keep saying that he's hopeful and that he's looking to start practicing, I think, during this bye week. We'll see how he responds to that. I still think that even if he does make his way back, I think it might still be touch and go. We'll see. I'm obviously I'm a huge fan. All I want are my players out on the field for sure. But it is what it is. And bilateral, which means both sides, Achilles tendonitis, is very tough injury.
Yeah, it is tough. And as long as he's getting the rest, I think you just got to get proper rest, because it's overworking for him. Like, he's been overtraining and a lot of that stuff. So the ammonia part of what you're saying, it can linger on for some players or some people. But for regular people, it would take weeks to recover. But for Debo to do that, it's just like, I'm wondering what kind of medicine did he take? Because I might want to take some of that if I have to not miss work or something.
It's steroids. It's prednisone.
Oh, okay.
It's probably what he put on. Probably antibiotics. Probably
something with antibiotics. That's what I was thinking. Something like that. It had to be something strong, but
it's probably more the steroids that allowed him to return, though, because that's the most powerful anti-inflammatory. The other part of that is, if he should have complications with now completely resolving that, one of the medication classes that you can get put on for pneumonia is fluoroquinolones. Fluoroquinolones is a drug class that is known to have cause soft tissue injury in terms of like ruptured tendons.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that he doesn't have to be put on one of those types of medications. So again, hopeful that this is just all nothing, and he'll recover 100%.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna get a full bye week to recover, but it wouldn't be a shocker if he's gonna miss at least some time, just to play it smart. But the concerning going into the season is these injuries have been piled up, and like you said, you haven't seen this type of much injury since 2020, which was like at an all-time high. But since this was a topic you wanted to bring up about, this was something that people were throwing under the radar, like just bringing this up, like what was said behind the scenes between Brock and Kyle Shanahan that just wasn't there.
Yeah, so there's I won't bring up his name, but there was someone out on X that posted that after the Chiefs game, Brock may have had, a nice chew out session by Coach Shanahan. And so then coming into this week, there was talks all throughout Twitterverse of, his coaching style. And when Brock came out in the first half of the Cowboys game, it's like, okay, is this a result of the discussion that was had in the locker room from the previous week? So is now Kyle Shanahan in Brock's head? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I just think that sometimes those communications can be misunderstanding for some people. Like maybe the way how Kyle was talking to Brock and Brock was listening, it didn't seem like an argument or confrontation type of thing, and plus they were shaking hands after the conversation. So it went 5 minutes. Usually when a coach wants to have a conversation with you, it can be sometimes bad, but no, it can be like communication issues. Like, hey, what can we do to get better? And I've seen guys on the locker room where I was on a team before, in school or any other minor leagues or something like that. And if a coach comes to you and talks to you for a little bit, they wouldn't just come over here for nothing. They would want you. They would be only concerned about one thing. Hey, what can we do to get you better?
I agree. I think it was probably something that some quick corrections, maybe a quick pep talk. Maybe he knew Brock was in his head and, trying to help get him out of that. I mean, there's lots of conversations, and I too don't think that, that was the situation. Brock is still very young, and I think that we forget that, right? We see other quarterbacks in the NFL, like Anthony Richardson, like young quarterbacks that are struggling, right? And Brock just came in, turnkey ready, and he was just out and at it, out of the gate right away. And I think we forget and we take it for granted that he's just supposed to go from here to here, and it's not a straight line. It's going to be ups and downs as he continues to improve throughout his career, and we just kind of have to roll with that. So, Faithful, we just need to take a big deep breath. We got to enjoy this bye and see how it all comes together in the second half of the season.
Oh yeah, we're hoping for the best, but there's a lot of this noise that's just coming up. Like, I'm not trying to overreact it, but I feel like this Niner faithful, they're just panicking too quickly, and it's coming to that lame trend. Fire Kyle Shanahan. I just don't get it. Like, hey, we've been down this road before, so I don't know why it's something. I can respect on what their perspective are. We do want to win a Super Bowl, of course. I get that some of them are really frustrated.
Yeah. It's a passionate fan base, right? I mean,
yeah.
It is what it is, and I understand the frustrations, and I can't say that I don't have colorful language after certain games too, but I give myself a good 24 hours before I start posting nonsense or anything, and just make sure that that's really, the emotion that I want to go with. So sometimes we just need to step away from, our thumb-like keyboard and just kind of have a breath and just, let things reset, understand what's going on, and then, take things with a grain of salt. It's a long season.
Yeah, it is a long season, and the best way for me to cure all that is just, like the best therapy is just to let it all out, whether people are laughing about it or not. It doesn't bother me. It's just some other fans get a good laugh out of it, so it doesn't really bother me. But I just think that if I let it all out, everything will be good. Then the next hours or so, I'm cool, I'm chill, I forget about whatever happened the next day.
Yep, agree.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate as a football player because I played it before, but it's not like the higher level, no. But like the way how we look as fans, we're passionate about our team, of course, and all that stuff. So it's no surprise. But let's see. Since we still have time, the Niners can still make a possible trade. But do you believe the Niners can make a move before the trade deadline, or do you think they stay put where they're at?
I mean, they can. Whether they do or not is a whole nother question. I definitely, with all the injuries, I'm definitely nervous about the depth in different position sets. Our D line, worried about the depth there. Worried about our wide receiver room. Kind of worried about our running back room, right? Like we're already on our third and fourth and fifth quarter, running backs. So definitely think that there's options there, and whether or not we pull the trigger is going to be completely up to the front office.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be surprising if we make a move, but I think if we are gonna make a trade move, it would probably have to be another pass rusher, just because we want to jumpstart our defense and get on track. I just think maybe another edge rusher. If you get a guy off the rotation and keep the D line fresh, that would be a difference. And like you said, the running backs getting thin with injuries. Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long season, but the way how Kyle just treats our running backs, he just runs them to the ground too much. So it's like, can we go back to the old basics of going with running back by committee, just split carries, keep them all fresh, and just go with the flow, like they say.
Yeah, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what the second half of the season looks like. I do think there was a question that is it Grandizer 12?
Yeah, Grandizer, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What does it say? How much of a do you see in medicine and sports from year to year? Is it fast or at a snail's pace? It's a little bit of both, to be honest. It depends on what area of medicine. I mean, medicine has so many subspecialties in it. If you're talking just specifically sports medicine, which I think that's what you're saying there,
Yeah.
it really depends. I think the most incredible thing that I've seen of recent is the internal bracing, and I don't get me started because I will talk all day about internal bracing. It has been phenomenal. That was the injury that Brock Purdy had, the UCL injury, in which he did not have the Tommy John surgery. He ended up having a repair with internal bracing, and that allowed him to come back after 6 months versus a return at 12 months. And that is just phenomenal. And there's certain situations where that is something being utilized in other areas of the body. I know that depending on the type of Achilles tendon tear, that's another option to use internal bracing, which I'm fascinated with the Dre Greenlaw injury, because I was like, oh, did he get internal bracing? Because I'll feel so much more confident about his return and all of that. But I haven't seen anywhere whether it designates that is or isn't the repair that he specifically had. I'm thinking maybe not, because, if the timeline, if he hasn't, I think the timeline really is November, December at the earliest. But if he had it, I was really watching Aaron Rodgers' injury from last year to see if he made it back, because he got injured in the first game, right? So I was waiting to see if he was going to be able to be in the postseason, if the Jets would make it in the postseason, for us to see him come back at that time, just as a timeline. But because I think he had internal bracing, but he didn't make it. They didn't make it, and we didn't get to see that full timeline. But I don't think he would have been ready anyway. Achilles is really hard to come back from.
Yeah, it takes time, and I think the recovery takes a little while. But I think for Dre Greenlaw, it should be, like you said, around November at the latest. So it could be, if they want to play it smart, wait until early December. But I think latest by mid-November, or maybe at the latest November, you might get him. But I think he's going to be a huge difference, because we're lacking that physical, fierce presence. We all know what Fred Warner is, but he needs that sidekick. He needs that Batman on his side. So you need somebody who can create that fear presence, because no offense to Devondre Campbell, he just doesn't seem to fear the offense as much. He just needs to be on point on his coverage, but I feel like Dre Greenlaw's physical presence does matter.
We haven't seen a good clothesline all season. I'm missing it, man. I want to see a little bit of WWE mixed in with this NFL. So I definitely missed Drake for sure.
What we missed from that Niners and Chiefs game was no way Mahomes would have ran that way. Nah, he would have got hit by Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw would have took the risk of a 15-yard penalty, but it would have been worth it, because Patrick Mahomes wouldn't be running around like that again.
I am of the camp that if Dre hadn't torn his Achilles in the Super Bowl, that we would have won the Super Bowl. That's how much I value Dre Greenlaw, and that's why I hate myself so much for forgetting his name at the beginning of this podcast.
It happens, nobody's perfect.
Unforgivable. It's unforgivable. He's like one of my favorite players, and so that's
yeah, I got one of his jerseys, so he is one of my favorite players. But this guy is like, he comes pissed off, and that's what you like about certain players.
Grandizer. He also adds, apologize, should have been more specific in an area. Surgeries versus no surgeries. Healing times in the past, that would take a whole year. Now it's only a few months. Concussions as well. So, yeah, I think in terms of surgeries, like internal bracing, but in terms of surgeries versus no surgeries, I think that's different for us common folk versus athletes. I think that now a good surgeon, and it also depends on the surgeon, because some surgeons just want to operate, right? And they just want to, it's a business and they want to operate. If you have a good surgeon, they'll know when exactly you should have surgery versus, hey, you really don't need to have, like, for instance, Achilles tendon. I was working with an orthopedic just a year ago, and he actually said that you don't really need to fix an Achilles tendon for us lay folk on day-to-day basis. Unless you're an athlete, you don't really need to repair the Achilles, only if you're super active. So if we tear our Achilles and we don't really do much, we don't really need to have surgery. It is, being in a boot and it's a physical therapy and that type of stuff, but you don't necessarily have to have surgery. That was mind blowing to me. So there's always changes, always things going on. But in terms of concussions, that has not changed. There's not anything that we can offer people to improve a concussion other than time. So, there is no treatment. It's just waiting it out. What we have gotten better in terms of concussion is diagnosing and then being able to have baseline testing, like neuropsych testing, that will be able to pick up on cognitive changes from concussions so that we know, hey, you've returned to baseline, and now, we can look at a timeline of return to sport. So if you ask me, I won't watch a Miami game from here on out, as long as
it just, yeah, it just seems like a disaster with a lot of these injuries. Buddy said something like this: is it actually more than likely that we will not see CM? I think CMC is already making huge progress towards coming off the bye, but it depends on practice on Monday, from my understanding.
That's correct. We have not seen him in action yet. He's not actually been involved in football. He's not been in contact situations and things like that. So I listen, buddy. I think realistically, I'm of the mind that I don't really expect CMC back this year. I'm not saying he won't make it back. I'm saying he could make it back, be available for like 2 or 3 games, and then maybe it's back inflamed. I mean, this is a tough injury to come back from. So it might require a full year off. I don't know. I'm obviously not hoping that, but this was kind of like, do you remember when, was it last season or the season before, when, goodness gracious, his name, he just went to Jacksonville. We traded him in the offseason.
Eric Armstead.
Eric Armstead. So Eric Armstead had plantar fasciitis, which
That's what I got.
Okay. So, it's a very nagging injury, and it can recur, and it can go hot and cold, and you kind of just
can linger.
And when you're miserable, right? Like you cannot even walk. So that's kind of similar to Achilles tendonitis. Like when you're miserable, you're miserable. And when it quiets, it's like, okay, great. And then you kind of also have this mindset of like, ooh, is it going to come back? It's a tough. So I'm glad that you've had that. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like the plantar fasciitis, it just really depends on the pressure of the weight of the foot sometimes, because if you step on and if you have foot issues, it can really linger in. There's days you feel normal, and then there's just days you just feel like you can't even walk. So it's like, and I had to deal with that, and there had to be proper treatments and all that, but yeah, Armstead had it pretty worse. But like you said, the tendonitis could be something similar because it's the inflammation. The inflammation, you cannot use cortisone for something like this because this makes it even worse. But the inflammation, it can linger. It can be a setback at times, but the Niners are trying to see if he can make it back this season with no setback. And if he doesn't get no setback on practice, then there is a positive sign. But I'm concerned maybe they need to limit the load for him and then split the carries with Garendo and Mason just to make sure he's healthy throughout the season instead of trying to run him to the ground or he has another setback.
Or he runs himself into the ground. But I agree with everything you just said. And I also agree with Danny Golding, where he says, hopefully CMC and Greenlaw can be healthy for a deep playoff run. That is where I would pull out the stops. I would make sure if we can, that's when you really want to load up and make sure that we have them. So I'm hopeful for that. Danny, I'm with you.
No, but the worst part about getting plantitis, it can even be like setbacks with cold season too, and that could be painful at times. Depends on how you take care of it, but as long as we win coming around, I'm perfectly happy with Isaac being fed the rock. I mean, Garendo's kind of into his own. When I saw his name popped up, I'm like, I see that this has Kyle Shanahan draft pick written all over it before even the draft was even like coming around. I see this guy's name under the radar, and I'm like, man, I got a feeling this could be a Kyle Shanahan pick, and I'm hoping it's not third-round pick.
I'll say, Isaac Garendo, I am fascinated by this guy. Like, I'm a track coach, so I saw him carry the rock, and like he is fast, like 4.3. and he looks every bit of it. I'm like, I'm here for it. I want to see this guy break open into the open field and take it to the house, because he could be a very exciting player behind the line of scrimmage. So
Oh yeah,
it's different, much different than Mason. Much, and a little. It's like if you put Mason and Garendo together, that's CMC. So it's pretty incredible to have all the different types all together.
yeah. Yeah, like it was a question mark for me to be concerned, but the more I started watching him, I'm like, okay, he fits our system a lot better. He just needs to get more reps, and I'm not gonna question it right now because it wasn't a third round pick; it was technically a fourth round. So I ain't gonna go down there. But Kyle does take those chances in those early picks, gets a running back early. I'm like, here we go again. But Garendo kind of gives me that Raheem Mostert a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. If you could really get a little bit more of a receivery type construct to his play, it could be really fascinating. He could be another check down option for Brock, and I think it'd be really exciting to see him play. But the concern I guess I would have would be how good of a blocker could he be? Because
he needs more.
That ability.
He just needs to play more, and he needs to work on his assignment. That's all it takes. But I think he'll get better as the season goes on. But I think we pretty much covered everything from your basic, because I know you got to do some other shows later. But definitely appreciate your time. Hopefully in the near future, we can definitely figure out something that works for you. But it was a great chit chat. We definitely can do another show at some point, maybe later in the season or something.
Perfect. I'd love that. We got half a season left to go, so I'd be welcome to come back anytime.
Oh, so before I end this, tell everybody where they can find your social media platform.
Okay, so I am on X as Coach Desi. I'm also on Instagram as Coach Desi. Girlfriends in Football is my podcast, and we'll go at 8:00 tonight on YouTube or anywhere you find your podcast. So Girlfriends in Football, both on YouTube and on Instagram. My co-host is a doctorate of physical therapy, and so we do cover a lot of injuries, not just for Niners, but in the NFL. We have talked about Tua. We have talked about Nick Chubb last season. We've got, a lot of information there. So if you guys want to take it, got some time here in the next 30 minutes and want to come check us out, we'd love to have you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And thank you for your time, and thank you guys for tuning in. We'll definitely see you guys another time.